Let's answer the question that keeps going viral. Does quantum physics prove manifestation? If you've spent any time in spiritual content online, you've seen the claim, quantum physics proves your thoughts create reality. And if you've tried to build your life on that claim, you may have felt one of two things. Either you felt inspired for a moment, or you felt frustrated later, because real life didn't instantly cooperate. So today we're doing this the honest way. No woo, no hype. We're going to separate what physics actually says, what the internet exaggerates, and what's still useful for prosperity, vibration, coherence, and the inner field. Because vibrational state is not here to sell fantasy. Vibrational state is here to build a grounded path where you can actually see results through clarity, coherence, and consistent action. Before we go deeper, if you want grounded videos on frequency, vibration, coherence, emotional frequency, and the inner field, subscribe now. Each episode builds on the last, and Vibrational State is designed as a progressive series. If you watch in order, it starts to feel like your inner world becomes readable, because it does. Now, here's the short answer. Quantum physics does not prove manifestation in the way people claim online. But that doesn't mean nothing is useful. It means we have to be precise. Because there's a big difference between physics proves your mind controls atoms to make money. Then, your internal state shapes your outcomes through attention, choices, behavior, and timing. The first one is hype. The second one is real. And prosperity is built on what's real. Now here's the problem. When people believe quantum proves manifestation, they often try to skip the real work. The work of regulating urgency, the work of building coherence, the work of sustaining stable attention, the work of making consistent, clean choices. They want a metaphysical shortcut, but shortcuts create disappointment, and disappointment creates cynicism, and cynicism becomes a frequency too. So today, we clean the definitions so you don't waste years chasing the wrong lever. Let's start with what quantum physics is actually about. Quantum physics is a framework for describing how systems behave at very small scales. It deals with probabilities, measurement, interaction, and limits on what can be known simultaneously. It is not a motivational philosophy. It is not a spiritual promise. It is a model. And models have boundaries. So when someone uses quantum physics to prove a spiritual claim, ask one question. Are they using the model inside its boundaries or outside it? Most of the time, they're using it outside the boundaries. Not because they're evil, often they're just repeating what they heard. But repetition doesn't make something true. Now the good news, even if quantum physics doesn't prove magical manifestation, it does support one key insight that helps your life. Outcomes depend on conditions. And in daily life, one of your strongest conditions is your inner state, your nervous system, your emotional frequency, your inner field. That's the bridge vibrational state cares about. Not physics proves magic, but conditions matter, and your inner state is a condition you can train. Now, the most common misuse online is the observer effect. So let's address that carefully. The internet loves one phrase, the observer effect. It sounds mystical, it sounds powerful. It sounds like a permission slip to believe your mind creates reality. But what does it actually mean? In physics, observer often does not mean your consciousness in the spiritual sense. It often means a measurement interaction, an apparatus, a detector, a system that interacts with what's being studied. So, the observer effect is not a statement that your personal desire collapses reality into money. It's a statement that measurement and interaction can change what you can predict about a system. That's a very different claim. Now, does that mean consciousness is irrelevant? Not necessarily. But it means the simplistic internet slogan is not accurate. And if your foundation is built on slogans, your practice becomes unstable. This is where manifestation content becomes dangerous, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle way. People start blaming themselves for not believing hard enough. They think, if quantum physics proves this, and it isn't working for me, I must be broken. No, usually they're just using the wrong map. Now here's where quantum ideas can still be useful. Quantum physics describes systems probabilistically. It reminds us that outcomes are not always deterministic in the simple way people expect. But that does not mean your mind chooses any outcome you want. It means reality is complex, and the conditions matter. In your life, conditions include your skills, your environment, your timing, your relationships, your strategy, and yes, your inner state. The problem with many spiritual communities is that they try to remove the practical conditions and replace them with metaphysical certainty. But prosperity is built through a relationship between inner and outer conditions. Vibrational state is about that relationship. So what is a grounded version of the observer in your life? It's not, my mind collapses the universe. It's, my attention changes my perception, and my perception changes my choices. That's the real observer effect in daily life. If your attention is locked on threat, you will see threat. If your attention is locked on lack, you will see lack. If your attention is locked on urgency, you will behave urgently. And urgent behavior creates urgent outcomes. If your attention is stable, you see more options. You respond instead of react. You choose timing better. You communicate clearly. You stay consistent. This is not magic. This is state, attention, choice. So the key upgrade is, stop using quantum physics to prove metaphysics. Use the principle correctly. Your outcomes change when your conditions change, and your inner state is one of the most trainable conditions you have. Now, let's talk about why this matters for prosperity. Because money and prosperity are not just about ideas, they are about behavior, and behavior is driven by state. So let's define the two main states again: survival mode and coherence. Survival mode narrows attention. Coherence widens attention. Survival mode pushes short-term relief. Coherence supports long-term strategy. Survival mode creates mixed signals. Coherence creates clean signals. And clean signals are essential for prosperity, because prosperity requires trust, timing, consistency, follow-through, emotional regulation under uncertainty. Now you might ask, so is vibration just psychology? Not exactly. Mindset is what you think. State is what your body broadcasts while you think it. You can think, I'm abundant, while your body is braced. That brace changes your behavior. You can think, I trust life, while your breath is shallow. That shallow breath changes your risk tolerance, your patience, your negotiation. So the vibration we talk about in vibrational state is a whole system state. Nervous system, emotion, attention, behavior. Now let's make the honest answer even clearer. Quantum physics does not prove manifestation, but it does not need to. Because prosperity is not built on proof. Prosperity is built on coherent conditions repeated over time. Now, the biggest trap is using quantum language to bypass responsibility. Let's talk about that. Here's what quantum woo often looks like. People say, everything is energy, so I don't need to do practical work. If I'm aligned, money will come without effort. The universe will deliver if I detach. If I haven't received it, I must be low vibration. These statements can sound empowering, but they often create passivity, guilt, and confusion, because the truth is more nuanced. Effort matters, strategy matters, timing matters, skills matter, relationships matter. But your inner state decides the quality of how you use all of those. So the real question is not, does quantum physics prove manifestation? The real question is, what conditions am I sustaining, and what outcomes do those conditions predict? Now let's define a grounded meaning of everything is energy. If someone wants to use that phrase responsibly, here's the clean version. Everything has measurable physical properties, including energy. Human experience has emotional states and nervous system states. Those states shape behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. That's a complete chain. What's missing from most internet content is the middle steps. They jump from everything is energy to therefore you can attract money with thoughts. They skip attention, decision-making, consistency, timing, behavior, and if you skip the steps, you get disappointment. Now, one of the biggest forms of spiritual bypass is positive thinking. People try to force positivity to avoid feeling fear or uncertainty. But fear and uncertainty aren't enemies. They're signals. The problem is not fear. The problem is being run by fear. And that's where coherence comes in. Coherence is not never feel fear. Coherence is the ability to feel fear and still act cleanly. It's stability under uncertainty. Prosperity requires stability under uncertainty, because money is built through decisions over time, and time includes uncertainty. Now, let's talk about mixed signals, because this is where most people get stuck. A mixed signal is when your language says one thing, but your nervous system broadcasts another. You say, "I'm ready for wealth," but your body is braced, like wealth is dangerous, so you sabotage. You say, "I'm open to receiving," but your body expects disappointment, so you avoid opportunities. You say, "I trust the universe," but your nervous system is in control mode, so you micromanage everything and exhaust yourself. That mismatch creates inconsistent action, and inconsistent action creates inconsistent results. So when people say manifestation doesn't work, they often mean, "I have been repeating words, but my underlying condition has not changed." And if the condition doesn't change, the outcomes don't change. This is why Vibrational State focuses on coherence and inner field, not because we're trying to be scientific to sound smart, but because the map has to work. Now let's address the money question directly. Is money purely frequency? No, money is also value creation, supply and demand, communication, trust, timing, skills, systems, behavior. But frequency is the condition that decides how you show up in all of those. So if your frequency is urgency, you create rushed decisions, unstable pricing, inconsistent marketing, emotional spending, quitting too early. If your frequency is coherence, you create clean communication, consistent output, stable systems, better timing, healthier risk tolerance. And that's why frequency looks like it creates wealth. Not because physics proves magic, because it shapes the chain that produces wealth. Now we need to make this even more concrete with examples. Let's make this concrete with 3 examples where frequency is obvious. Example 1. Negotiation. A person negotiating from survival mode is tense. They rush. They over-explain. They fear losing. They accept bad terms to feel safe. They leave money on the table. A person negotiating from coherence is calm. They can pause. They can ask a question. They can tolerate silence. They can walk away without collapsing. That stability changes outcomes. Example 2. Visibility and consistency. A person creating content from survival mode checks numbers obsessively. They panic. They quit when they don't see instant results. They restart with a new niche. They never compound. A person creating content from coherence stays consistent. They treat it as a long-term system. They improve gradually. They don't let short-term fluctuations rewrite their identity. That consistency compounds into growth. Example 3. Money systems. A person in survival mode avoids numbers. They don't want to feel the discomfort. They overspend, then feel shame. They oscillate between extremes. A person in coherence looks at numbers calmly. They build one simple system. They repeat it. They don't attach their identity to a single month. That stability builds wealth. Now, this is not a guided exercise video, but Vibrational State will always mention tools that support coherence, so you can use them privately if you want. Here are a few tools. Again, tools, not rituals. Tool 1. Longer exhales. Longer exhales signal safety. Safety reduces impulsivity. Less impulsivity improves money decisions. Tool 2. Reduce background tension. Jaw, shoulders, belly. That tension is a constant threat signal. Lower the alarm and you reduce noise. Tool 3. Single task attention. Stop leaking attention. Stable attention creates stable actions. Tool 4. One clean action. One calm step taken from steadiness builds self-trust. Tool 5. Remove one leak. One boundary. One avoided number. One postponed decision. Stop leaking energy into fear, and coherence rises. Now let's close with the honest answer one more time. Does quantum physics prove manifestation? No, not in the simplistic way the internet claims. But do quantum ideas remind us of something important? Yes, they remind us that outcomes depend on conditions and interactions. And in daily life, your inner state is one of the strongest conditions you can train. Your emotional frequency is what you repeatedly return to. Your inner field is the atmosphere you carry into actions. If you want a new outcome, you don't need magical proof. You need new conditions. So here's the formula you can remember. State shapes attention. Attention shapes choices. Choices shape behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Outcomes compound. That's what people call vibration, when it's defined cleanly. In the next episode, we'll explain the observer effect even more clearly, and we'll break down how attention becomes a real lever, without turning it into fantasy. If you want this to be a progressive daily path, subscribe. Welcome to Vibrational State.